My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live, and what a cliffhanger we've had. What an exciting finish. No, I'm not talking about England versus West Indies in Southampton. That was a foregone conclusion from when the run chase really started. But the real excitement we're talking about is this. Yes, the My 11 Circle expert couch, which went down to the wire. At the end, a no ball from Jason Holder, a couple of big shots from Ben Stokes meant that it went to me. But in all probability, it should have gone to Robin Uthappa because it looked for the longest as if it was going to finish around the 34th, 35th over. But England stepped on the gas just when it looked like it was going away. So that was the excitement. As far as the match is concerned, well, that was pretty one-sided. West Indies just didn't have enough runs on the board. They didn't bat their 50 overs out. That was the first crime they committed. And 212 all out was never going to be enough to challenge England, despite the injury worries they had. Jason Roy, with a hamstring, was going to bat at number 7. And Owen Morgan didn't really feel like batting with a bad back. He wouldn't have batted unless he absolutely had to. They changed their batting order. A brand new opener in Joe Root, opening for the first time in an ODI, and he made it count with 100, the second 100 of the tournament. Chris walks in at number 3. He had a good workout as well. So all in all, job done for England. And now, I think, looking like pre-tournament favourites they were, India coming in, pushing them, I can safely say, as we said at halftime, that they have stamped their authority. Joy and Robin looking a little disappointed about the couch.
No, I'm not. I've just gotten used to losing to you now. First in the My Circle 11 and now here. It's just, I'm residing to my state right now.
You're feeling a bit like the West Indies are right now.
No. The West Indies look at this as a blip in the radar. I think they'll be fine. But for me, with you, this has just been the case from the start of the World Cup, man.
All right, time to come back. But honestly, do you feel that the West Indies will look at this as a blimp in the radar because they were truly outplayed today?
They were, but they didn't play very good cricket today. I think one would think that, if they had taken a little bit more responsibility when they were batting, they would have probably got about 30, 40 runs more. Maybe wouldn't have done too much with the way England are batting, but I think they would want to revisit their bowling plans. I think going just short and being one-dimensional in that sense throughout the World Cup may not serve them. Maybe with lesser teams, but the better teams would definitely have solutions in place for that kind of attack.
But Joy, one thing was being one-dimensional and the short bowling. The other was their choice of bowlers. 10 overs between Brathwaite and Gale.
Oh, absolutely. When you have a situation when you know that this match is likely not to go into 40 overs, as it didn't, it finished in 33 odd, you say, we're going to give our best bowlers the best shot possible at getting wickets. And for me, the saddest part of it is, look at that. You have 2 overs from Andre Russell, and then basically Brathwaite...
Sheldon Cottrell.
Yeah.
He's been one of their standouts in the tournament. Yeah. 3 overs, bowled well.
But after that, he didn't come back at all. And that's been disappointing. They brought back O'Shane Thomas, but after that finished 10 overs between Brathwaite and Gale, who was frankly threatening is not the word that you use along with them. The point of it is also the first real ball, which was, bowled in anger, which cut the batsman into half, was about the...
With 20 runs to get.
Yeah, it was 27th, 28th over. It just went straight through. That was the only ball that looked threatening. And that for me is a big disappointment. Sometimes it happens. You create chances. You don't get it. It happens. Take 2-3 past the bat. You've beaten someone, just misses the stumps. This was flat. There was nothing there in the performance. And he's right. It looked like the same kind of attack. They tried to do the same kind of things. And this is something that West Indies has to look at very seriously. In every other match, they've got wickets early. And once they've got wickets early, they've looked good. But once they didn't get wickets early, they looked they didn't know what to do. And that's something that, they need to look at seriously as a team.
Yeah, and in fact, it's a bit of a mystery to me about Sheldon Cottrell, who looked decent up front. He's been very good in previous games, unless there's a niggle we don't know about, which is why they had to turn to Chris Gale. The only thing he provided was some great entertainment.
Yeah, but he also bowled well. He's the best bowler amongst everyone there. His economy rate is 4.4 compared to bowlers per se. But I think maybe they thought, there's a chance that they might play, they might meet the England team probably in the knockouts again. So they didn't want to really play all their cards out. They probably felt or resided to the fact that, if we don't get early wickets, and this might run away from us. And also bowling so many wides and extras didn't help their cause. They ended up bowling, I think, about 26, 28 wides.
Yeah, lots of extras. Yeah.
Lots of extras in that inning. So,
18 extras.
Yeah. No, much more than 18. More than 18.
They're saying it's 18 extras.
No, I'm pretty certain much more than 18
Yeah,
extras. Because it was 19 extras when we went, no, 20 extras when we were in that com box. But anyway, just the extras and even the fact that Carlos Brathwaite is being used. I see Carlos Brathwaite being more productive, say in subcontinent conditions, where he can extract enough bounce, but the wickets are slow as well, so it's hard to hit those. It's hard to really hit those balls very well in the subcontinent conditions. But back in England, I don't think he'd be as useful as he would be here in the subcontinent, because he's not quick enough and the ball sits up there a little bit. So if you don't have enough pace, it becomes easy to score off. And I think today's his spell was perhaps a testimony of what his economy rate might be there when he bowls in those conditions and when things are going well. And I don't see him bowling in crunch situations. So again, today he was brought in when things seemed all but lost. So see, keeping that in mind, West Indies may relook their strategy at how they want to bowl in the matches to come, and it would do them good if they actually relooked at their strategies.
Certainly, interesting thought from Robin, briefly mentioning that they might be considering England as a possible knockout opponent, which would assume that England continue to show their form, hence top the group. And if West Indies were to sneak through as that fourth team, then that could be a possible semi-final. But the real question is, can they sneak through as a fourth team? I think that's, before we talk about England, maybe we should have a look at the points table and just see where they stand right now, because the contenders really, I know we've put New Zealand as early contenders for fourth place, but at the moment they're sitting pretty on top. Assuming you're giving India, Australia and England those three places, Pakistan, the other team, very much in contention for that spot. So with West Indies sitting there now, they'll have to start looking at winning matches very soon.
Exactly. I think the next one they have is against Bangladesh. I think if they get that, they have to, as I said, they have to beat one of England, New Zealand, and the game today, England, New Zealand, and India were the three games which are crucial for them. One of those three they have to win to make it. They've already lost one of them. That means they have to beat India or New Zealand definitely to make it through. And that now, with the kind of way that they're playing, is not a great performance. Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, they'll fancy their chances against Bangladesh. They'll say if they play to form, they should beat Bangladesh. They could beat Bangladesh, but they have to beat one of New Zealand or India.
Yeah, they've got a decent finish, as we said earlier, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan. But those two games at Old Trafford between West Indies, New Zealand, and then West Indies and India will be crucial for them. But that's as far as the West Indies are concerned. England, I think, should be celebrated. It's one thing to try and look at loopholes and gaps and where they went wrong, but what about celebrating the winning team? They had their problems. I mean, imagine a team whose batting order are so set and you've had to suddenly switch to plan B, as we mentioned earlier, and how well that worked for them.
Yeah, plan B, plan C. Then Voxy comes into bat. They don't just move the batting order. They move a guy who bats at 8 for them, comes in, bats at 3 and bats beautifully. Obviously, these are all accomplished county batsmen. They're accomplished international batsmen. He does such a great job of it. And what was fantastic was the way they did everything today. I mean, for a team that's been, your captain has gone off the field, Jason Roy, who's your most prolific scorer, your hardest hitter up front, has gone off, and they didn't miss a step. And that's something that shows the kind of class and depth that they have. One good thing for them is that they've had their blip early. That loss that they had was early, and they've taken it and said, okay, fine, we've lost the one that we are supposed to have lost. We couldn't chase 330, 340, but okay, now we've got to, and so it woke them up early. They were very determined. They did a fantastic job today.
Woke them up early, yes. That was good. I had to get that one in. But Robin, you called it twice for Chris Woakes. One, firstly with the ball, and he was magnificent up front. And then while we were looking at all the contenders for number 3, we thought of maybe Stokes, Butler was a possibility to either open or come right there. And you said, no, Chris Woakes could be a contender. He came in there, batted well.
See, that's the beauty about Chris Woakes. He's someone who flies so much under the radar and quietly goes about doing his business. And, he's so effective. And he's a top quality cricketer, extremely hardworking, knows what his skills are, his limitations are, works around them, works to improve on them. And I think he's producing the results today, and kudos to him. He had a brilliant game today, and that's the kind of game you want to have going up into the tournament. You build momentum as a team, as individual players, and I think they were always ready for it. England as a unit, I think plan B, plan C, they have the versatility within the group to make those changes and still be successful. And I think that flexibility within that group is one of the key factors in them being tagged the favourites along with India in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they'll look at those couple of dropped catches, but really I think what probably will delight them the most is that while their batting lineup was being touted pre-tournament, they've actually won this game with the ball.
Yeah, and they're a threatening bowling lineup. They've looked much more threatening. If you see the number of, I mean, West Indians, it's not that batsmen haven't thrown their wicket away. 3 or 4 batsmen did throw their wicket away. But the number of wicket-taking deliveries, deliveries with the batsman was clearly beaten, where it just missed or it just didn't take the outside edge. The number of wicket-creating opportunities that the English bowlers have given, that's a sign for us. And I think Archer is really... he just adds something to this team that just takes it over the top. In fact, I was thinking about that in terms of sides, if you look at it. I mean, this is one of the most powerful sides that I have seen in many years of World Cups. I mean, I would say the 2003-7 Australians were big. The 83 West Indians, though they lost in the finals, were really strong. This is one of the great sides of international cricket.
Yeah, and certainly when you have somebody who's accustomed to batting in the middle order, never opened the batting in one-day cricket. Joe Root makes a second century, and this World Cup is still young, and I think they'll be looking at that and saying that that's a huge plus for us going forward, that kind of form for their top batsmen.
100%. I think the fact that Joe Root is in such scintillating form augurs really well for England and their campaign moving into this tournament. 94 balls for that 100, effortless. He was pulling and cutting so well with so much authority. It was just great to watch. It was a delight to watch, actually. And I think him again, he's got the versatility. He's tagged one of the best batsmen in the world, and for exactly that reason, because of the versatility he possesses to be able to bat in different positions when the team requires you to. I think these are the big team men that people keep talking about, who are willing to go out there and put the team ahead of themselves and ahead of what makes them comfortable, step out of their comfort zones for the sake of the team and produce results even then. I think that's what makes him the great player that he is.
It certainly is. KP got 2 hundreds in one tournament. Root's now got 2 hundreds in one tournament. Plus 1, so he now has the most hundreds by an Englishman. And guess what? As if that's not enough, he had to pick 2 wickets.
Absolutely. And the wickets is a surprise. I mean, the Jason Holder wicket and the other one, just both, again, England dropped a couple of catches in the outfield, so that he decided that I don't want to take any risks. Let me just take my own catches. Don't depend on anybody else.
But I don't think England would mind, the fact that they've erred on the field. Because you don't want to have perfect matches early on in the tournament. You want to have you don't mind having near perfect games, but if you want to have all the better games as a team on all 3 aspects of the game, in all 3 skill levels, you want to have them closer to the back end of the tournament so that you peak at the right time as a team. And I don't think this would be an issue. I read Alan Border saying somewhere that Australia are playing bad cricket, but at the same time they're still winning matches. That augurs really well for them. And I think in that sense, and from that mindset, from that perception, when you look at things, I think it's absolutely fine where England are at this point in time. They want to have things to keep working on, improving on when they reach that last stretch of the tournament where they say everything's perfect, let's just go out there and express ourselves as a team. And the results will come.
Appropriate that Border should say it, because then a lot like that 87 campaign of theirs, when they weren't playing the most attractive cricket, they didn't have the best team in the world, and yet they did the job, won the trophy.
Yeah, I think this Australian team is an interesting one in the sense that they weren't favourites, but then they went and got 10 in a row. This India defeat is the one that will sort of put a stop to it, but I think again, like England, they'd rather have that defeat early on. You'd rather not lose the 7th, 8th game. You don't want to get smashed. You'd rather get smashed in your 3rd or 4th game. And that's what's happened to them. And I think it's interesting. I think Australia is definitely a contender out here. Of course, we're not talking about New Zealand, which is his favourite 4th place team. And, it is, we're talking about West Indies and all these teams. But the fact is they're 3-0 at this point in time.
Yeah.
They certainly are. But in terms of individual performances, if you can score 100 and take 2 wickets, then there's going to be no 2nd place contender for the My 11 Circle MVP. The most valuable player, the most points in this game have come from Joe Root. And of course, if you had stuck him as captain or vice captain, wow, you'd pick up many more points from that. 100 of 94 balls and 2 wickets to boot. So certainly reason for England to celebrate, and England, of course, to celebrate for Joe Root individually. We do have a Beat the Expert champion, and that's the one who scored more points than Saurav Ganguly. Sanjay Kumar from Delhi with a whopping 582 points. And that, I think, can only come if you've had Joe Root as captain, and anyone who's won games today in the My 11 Circle game would have had Joe Root as captain, because you double the points from both bat and ball. So well done. and Dalal will be a little disappointed on that one. I think he had a good team going. Let's just quickly tell you where we stand right now in terms of these two teams. Once again, we've seen it once. I think let's just put things in perspective because we've got a couple of other games to talk about, but we'll just finish on England and the West Indies for the moment. England, 4 games. As you said, just that one loss, they wouldn't mind it because it's early in the tournament and they'll be able to look at a lot of things, the drop catches, the injuries, and be able to put it right before June the 25th.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. I think they wanna iron out all those wrinkles for the back end of the tournament and play their best cricket there, because it's very important to peak in these kind of tournaments at the right time. You don't want to peak too early, because you peak too early and then you're seeing a downhill slope. And the law of averages are very real in cricket. Very, very real.
Yes, law of averages, but also the laws of the body. Robin made an excellent point about the cold weather and looking after yourself. It's not just the Englishmen, the West Indians, Andre Russell. We saw Shannon Gabriel at the end pulling up with his second last delivery. And Jason Holder said, we have a lot of niggles in the dressing room. We need to fix it before the Bangladesh game.
They do, and for them, I think it's even more necessary. They're a very finely tuned fast bowling outfit. They depend on their fast bowlers. If Gabriel goes down, they have Kemar Roach out there, but if a couple of bowlers start going down, they are going to be serious looking, because this is not a team that thrives on slower bowling. Their spinners are not great. They need their fast bowlers to be in action. And see, if you remember, the match that they didn't do well is when they got completely, as I said, hammered in the beginning. They need early wickets. This is a team that has only done well when they've taken early wickets, and it's the fast bowlers they're going to give it to you. They need to be in touch.
Morgan, of course, with his bad back, did, of course, speak after the game. Nothing wrong with his speech. And one thing he said was, we were brilliant, but he also said for Jason Roy, need 24 to 48 hours to get a final verdict.
Yeah, you do, because these things can actually really could just be an inflammation that subsides in about 24 to 48 hours, or something that doesn't subside, and then you don't know the real story of what it actually is. So it could be anything from just a mild pull to a strain to something, God forbid, as bad as a tear, a grade 1, grade 2 tear. A grade 1 tear is 10 days for him. A grade 2 would be essentially 3 weeks.
But assuming it's not a tear, but it's something that could
strain about a week or so.
A week or so. You still wouldn't want to play him in the next game?
Yeah, if he just pulled his hamstring, then a week, just to be on the safer side. He'd be better in 3 or 4 days, but you want to be on the safer side. You want to err on the side of, being safe and make sure that he's completely fit. And they would have to retest him, make sure he's able to run about 40-50 meters at a good pace without that impeding him. So 5 to 7 days, I'd say.
Yes. Dr. Robin Uthappa has spoken. That's what the verdict is for Jason Roy, but I think we've already told you that England have a relatively easy schedule, relatively speaking, before they get to meet the big one, the prelude to the Ashes, as it were, on the 25th of June, and that's the one they're looking forward to with the way their tournament stands. But with England and the West Indies done and dusted, let's look ahead to the next game. It's going to be a very interesting clash, because Sri Lanka have had the worst of the weather so far, and we're expecting better weather for the match against Australia. But the moment the sun shines, what an opposition to come up against.
I know, finally you missed a couple of easy. Wait, who's up? Australia. Okay, Stark is going to come into bowl right now at me. Yeah, it's something that I don't think... I mean, Sri Lanka will just have to say that, look, weather's gone this way. The one good thing about the weather is maybe it's given them a chance to sort of sit as a team, spend time together as a team and say, what do we want to do in this World Cup? What can we achieve as a unit? Malinga should hopefully be back by that time, and that's important for them because his coming back is really important to this side. And I think they just need to, the only thing Sri Lanka can do under these circumstances, because they've had a downward slide in the last 18 to 24 months in international cricket. They just need to see, whatever it is, let's at least show great attitude out here. And that's one thing that they haven't looked like so far. The great Sri Lankan sides of the 90s and 2000s, or even under the likes of Sangakkara and Mahela, were a very united side. They'd punch above their weight. That's what Sri Lanka is not doing today, and I think that's here. That's not just here, that's here, and I think they're not perfectly there right now.
But also what's happening from here, Robin, is when we heard about them lodging a complaint about the surfaces they've played on, that sort of came as a surprise. When I first heard Sri Lanka lodged a complaint, I thought it would be about the covers, the weather, not that who do you complain to about the weather. But I honestly thought it was about that, but it was a serious complaint about the surfaces.
Well, see, I think, with the current state of affairs after Mahela and Sangakkara retired, and the likes of with Dilshan as well. I think what's happened in Sri Lanka cricket with their experience over the last 18 to 24 months, they've lost a lot of confidence, right? And that's affected them deeply. And the fact that the team's been changed so much has bred so much insecurity. It's hard to perform when you're not secure of your position, and then you play on challenging conditions, and then you experience defeats after defeats. Then they really have nothing to stand up for, right? You feel defeated. Even you're always behind the 8 ball even before the balls, like the first ball of the game started even, right? So it would take a little time for Sri Lankan cricket to come back to where it was till say 2015, 2016. It would take a little bit of time, but I think if people can be patient and the administration can be patient with persisting with a set bunch of players for a period of time, then they'll actually see results happening. Because if you support a group for a period of time and you make sure that you're giving them enough resources to be successful abroad and at home, then you know that over a period of time they'll build confidence and become truly good players and a real contending side. So I think what they should do is if they've made a group right now, they should have a plan as to what they're going to do 2 years down the line, who are the players that they're going to nurture for the next World Cup, and keep that bunch of players and have a little bit of flexibility, a little give of 5 players or so, and then just shift between those, because it's a small country, so your resources are limited. So you make sure that with that in mind, you plan for the next World Cup. So over a period of 4 years, you make sure that you have a team that you build to the next World Cup. And they can start from here right now. They can actually do that. But they just have to get that plan in place. Once that plan's in place for them, I think once they start they'll start experiencing victories abroad and at home. That would give them a lot of confidence. And then repeating that process will make them stronger players. You'll see stronger individual players coming out of that group, and then you find leaders within the group, and then by the time the next World Cup comes, you're like, hey, that's a good side. Like the kind of respect we have for Bangladesh today. You look at them and you feel, hey, that's a good side. They can give any team a run for their money on their day. So don't write them off. And that's the kind of team that you'll see if a process is followed. Right now, it seems a little haywire in Sri Lankan cricket, but I'm sure Sri Lankan supporters and the people of that country want their team to do well and support their team, because they're extremely passionate people. And you hope for their sake that there's a process that's put in place that actually serves their cricket in the years to come.
Yeah, I think it's good advice. If anyone in Sri Lanka is listening, every word that Robin Uthappa said, including the Bangladeshis listening in there, that's a good example to follow. But let's have a look at their squad, because remember, they haven't played for 10 days, and that's a huge gap. They've had a couple of washouts. They wish that the Australia game would have been that 1 point stolen. We still haven't really seen much from Jeffrey Van der Say or Sirivardhana. Avishka Fernando was talked about so much. Maybe this is the time to start getting these guys in with Nuwan Pradeep still injured.
No, absolutely. I definitely throw in Avishka Fernando, though he's an opening batsman. He's a very exciting talent. The truth of it is that their basic problem has been that the talent that they thought would take over from Jayawardene and Sangakkara, the two of the guys were, one was Dinesh Chandimal, who they thought was the next big bat, and the other was Angelo Matthews. And Dinesh has somehow faded off, and even Angelo has not given the kind of results, or at least over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe it's injury.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing, Joy, that when you're chopping and changing so much. Now, if Dinesh Chandimal was given, said, okay, you're in charge of the team for the next 2 years, we're not touching the team, we'll work with you and build a side, things would have been different today. If they had done this 3 years ago, if they had that perception to say, okay, Sangha and Dilshan and Jayawardene have retired, where do we take Sri Lankan cricket from here? What's the best way to approach this? And said, okay, we have a few of these youngsters who seem exciting, and there's a certain bunch that seems like they can take Sri Lankan cricket forward. Let's persist with them. And when we persist with them, maybe in 2 years, let's not look at just 3 series or 4 series or 5 bilateral series. Let's give them 2 years. Let them play 2 years of competitive cricket around the world internationally and see what comes out of that. And if it doesn't work there, let's tinker a little bit. Let's not change the whole system. But what has happened is they're changing the whole system once every 6-8 months, and that's bred insecurity, and that's bred the performance that they're seeing today.
Yes, so plenty for Sri Lanka to think about. Maybe we will expect some changes, but again, it's a lot dependent. The only thing we're sure of, yes, Malinga's back and Nuwan Pradeep is injured. Let's move on to Australia, because it's going to be a challenge for them as well, because with a team like Sri Lanka, who are tending to be unpredictable, who can be dangerous if they want to, that for Australia could be the unknown factor. Now, this is what we've had from the last game. We know Marcus Stoinis has that injury. Mitchell Marsh will be a replacement as and when, but not at the moment. They'll be picking from this particular squad.
Yeah, so obviously somebody walks in. I mean, the team they played, I'd be surprised not to see Zampa back. Unless the conditions are again so overcast that it's going to seem for all the day. I think Zampa is an important bowler for them, and he needs to come back for them because they need a little bit of variety in their bowling that they don't have right now. And I think otherwise they're a set side. Their batting looks decent. I mean, they want probably Maxwell to go on and get few more. But otherwise they're okay. They'll take that defeat in India and say we were beaten by a very good side playing at the top of their game. It's not that they were smashed to defeat or something. It was a decent... They put up a fight and they were beaten by a better side. And I think they still have a chance to improve. They're still not as good as they could be.
Sean Marsh, perhaps the one question mark you're looking at. How do you think they'll treat this game? Because, I mean, you can't be complacent, no matter what problems Sri Lanka are going through. But yet they'll know that this is 2 points that should be in the bag.
Gautam, there's something about the Australian team when it comes to the World Cups. Because they've won this thing 5 times in the past, there's a certain aura and energy that they come into World Cups with, right? And they've got the right kind of momentum winning those 7 or 8, 9 one-day internationals before coming in here. And you see that they're really, really confident, right? And I think this game would be the ideal game for Australia to work out different permutations and combinations within their side. Not just in the playing 11, but even who bowls when, who bats where, and who needs to get batting practice out in the middle, who needs to go out there and score runs. So they can use this game and a couple of other games in this tournament to work out certain permutations and combinations. I wouldn't be surprised if Jason Behrendorff gets a game. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I wouldn't be surprised if Mitchell Starc is rested or Kane Richardson is rested. I wouldn't be surprised if Pat Cummins comes in bowls at one change instead of opening the bowling.
Because Behrendorff would obviously...
Because Behrendorff would open. So, I wouldn't be surprised with them trying different things tomorrow just to figure out what is their best side moving forward in this tournament.
So, interesting approach, problems for Sri Lanka and problems of a different kind for Australia to try and get that right combination on the park come the knockout stage and, of course, come important games like versus England on the 25th. So all makes for an interesting clash in London between Australia and Sri Lanka. It also means that you've got your headaches as well, yes, to pick your team. Perhaps not as difficult a team to pick as you would have had between England and the West Indies because the players aren't that expensive really. So in case you haven't downloaded the app, get there, select Australia versus Sri Lanka. Of course, there's 2 matches to pick. Each match will be treated individually. And hashtag Dada Kavada remains true. 5 times the amount of cash if you can beat the expert. And remember, it means it's a Saturday double header. Once we talked about Australia and Sri Lanka. What about the second game from Wales, from Cardiff? It's South Africa against Afghanistan. Yes, we've almost forgotten about the South Africans. We keep saying must win, must win, must win. But really, if there has to be even a mathematical possibility, it's must win.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about it and said, how many years, when would you think you'd see the day where 4 matches are over and South Africa doesn't have a win on the board? They've 3 matches they lost one to rain. 4 matches and they've just got 1 point on the board. That's a scary, scary number. It's never happened to them in the history of the World Cup at least. And that they'll be looking at and saying that again, they have their backs to the wall. So the truth of it is they're probably going to turn around and say, this is the start of our campaign. We got a match. Okay, that match was rained out. This is the start of our campaign. And it's a good thing. Let's look at it from here on because you're 4 matches down. This is now knockouts. So any one defeat basically derails them. They need to win at least 5 matches and have that 5.5 wins to be at least qualify. So they'll say, we just treat it as a knockout. Every match is a knockout. Just look at it 1 match at a time. And sometimes that really works. It has worked for many teams. I remember KKR in 2014 famously were 2-5. And then won 9 in a row straight off. I mean, that's the kind of thing that can happen if you're now they're saying match by match by match by match.
Is there a danger of sort of individuals, almost, I don't want to use the C word here, but individual performances? How do you instill that within a team since you've experienced it?
Well, you're talking from South Africa's perspective.
Yeah.
Right? So I think for South Africa, I think the whole, like Joyda was mentioning right now, I think the whole perception or the whole intention for this game would be, let's just play this game. Let's just win this game. Let's just go out there and play to our strengths on that particular day. Nothing more. They'll shut everything out and they'll just focus on today. This is the 11. What is the best possible result out of this 11? What are the best possible performances from these 11 individuals? Let's get that together, get a win, move forward to the next.
Well, which 11 we are talking about? It leads us beautifully into that, because this is the squad that they have to choose from. Remember, a couple of the 11 actually popped out. Still not sure about Lungisani Ngidi yet, so let's assume he's not in contention. Dwayne Pretorius has been sort of bits and pieces to start with, so they've got problems, but they'll need to just figure out that 11 playing, the best playing 11.
I think Bjorn Hendricks, I think this will essentially stay the same team that's up there on the telly. I think that's the same 11 that will play tomorrow. I don't see many changes. Maybe I don't see Pretorius playing because he's an all-rounder, and Chris Morris plays that role. I think this is the team that they will go with. I don't think there'll be many changes. And if Lungi I think they would afford. They could afford to give Lungi a little bit more of a break to make sure that he's fitter in for the days to come. So there's a lot of planning for the injured players as well that needs to happen, and I don't see Shamsi making it into this side tomorrow.
Amla will also want to look at this as an opportunity to get some runs.
Absolutely. I think they will be, that's one thing for them. It's really important to them. Decock and Amla are really important to them up front. And Decock he's got a bit of form somewhere. Amla has just looked completely out of it. Even when he's looked set, he's gone and given his wicket away. It's really important. This team needs Amla in more ways than one, because he's their calming influence. He's the guy who stands in the dressing room and people look around at him and say that, he and du Plessis are so vital to this team. So he needs to be in form, and it's really important he gets. This is as good an opportunity. Afghanistan is as good an opportunity as any for Amla to get himself into a bit of form.
Now, talk about problems. It's not that Afghanistan, so many teams have had different kinds of problems, be it the weather, certain complaints that have been issued, injuries. Afghanistan also have had their share of problems, not just the captaincy change, but Mohammad Shahzad getting injured. And we've heard, murmurs that he feels
We've
that he
heard
was
more
not
than just murmurs.
Yeah, he feels
I
he was
feel
not
bad for the guy, Gautam. As in, he's wherever he is, he's if he has to go into social media, or go to the media, just per se to the media and say, and you can see the passion, in his eyes, and he's as in. It's heartbreaking for someone like me to see an athlete show so much emotion for his country and be hard done by the association. And we don't know what the whole story is, but from whatever it is, if he says he was fit enough to play, you need to take that word. You can't, as in, it would be so unfair if Shikhar Dhawan's injured there, and suddenly the board decides to say, okay, we've sent the fitness certificate to ICC, we're sending a replacement in, right? It would have been so unfair to Shikhar Dhawan, and in that same light, it's so unfair to him as well. So I think I really hope they sort this out, because even before the World Cup began, the players had a problem with the association. So it's not something that isn't there. It's an active problem which needs to be addressed, and because of that, my cards are on Australia tomorrow.
Yeah, and he's got that passion on South Africa, of course.
Sorry.
Yes, on South Africa.
On South
Africa. Australia against Sri Lanka, South Africa against...
I got confused with the double header.
Yeah,
sorry, people.
So much cricket coming up, especially because there's been so much rain. Now that we've got 2 matches of...
Yeah.
But if you actually read about Rashid and all talking about when they came into the game, Nabi Rashid, so much of them, so often they talk about, Mohammad Shahzad and because he was a hero for Afghanistan and Afghanistan all through the whole travel through the association.
The spunk that Afghanistan are actually as a cricketer?
He was the first recognizable Afghan cricketer. I mean, if you leave out Salim Durrani, who played for India.
He is the coolest dude ever. As in, you really think someone as young as Afghanistan is in the cricketing world, for someone within that team to actually go head-to-head, toe-to-toe with Chris Gayle and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to give you a run for your money, mate, and actually do that, and he was the guy who led that whole thing. And today, when you pluck someone like that out of that system, you're gonna leave a lot of people hurting. Not just their own cricketers, but fans as well, right?
I remember even saying the other day when we weren't sure of what was developing, when it looked like it was just an injury, we said, well, even if it's an injury, let's hope they keep him in the dressing room.
Exactly what we said. He is essential to that dressing room. I'm telling you, Rashid Khan and all have often said he was a hero for them for so long a time, because he was a guy who'd say nobody else, batsmen going down around him, he's still whacking the bowlers, because he'd play that way, he'd bring that aggression to the game. And they're sick. Look, you've already had problems with Afghan cricket, the change of captain, and two really senior people like, Rashid and Nabi actually putting out on Twitter saying that, they thought that the captaincy change at this point in time was unwarranted. So you have problems out there. You shouldn't compound it during the most important tournament in Afghanistan history by doing this. It's a pity.
Just a quick look at the squad, which now has a slightly different look to it. The Afghanistan squad, the replacement that, of course, came in was Ikram Ali Khil, was their wicketkeeper. So again, they were not quite sure who would keep for them. But more than that, it's his personality, it's his opening batting, it's that excitement he brought to the squad. So, really, against a team like South Africa, would they be looking at a Mujibur Rahman possibly coming in with that X factor?
Yeah, he probably will. Don't see him not playing. But for me, it's even unfortunate that Asghar Afghan isn't playing. Right, he was the captain before this World Cup, and he was playing every game. And suddenly you take him off captaincy, and you're saying to him that you don't deserve a spot in the 11, and that just says to me the kind of atmosphere that probably is in that Afghanistan dressing room today. So it's not very healthy. Let's hope it's healthier than we are assuming it to be. But it doesn't look good, and definitely see someone like Mujib playing, because they have to have match winners, so to speak, within that group. The young guy who's actually replacing Mohammad Shehzad is an 18 or 19-year-old. You want to give him a little time to get into his own skin within that group and go out there and express himself. He's playing. He's begun well. He's scored, I think, a 50 or something in the past for Afghanistan. But you want to see him doing a lot more for them. So a lot will weigh on Mohammad Nabi, Naib, Rashid and Mujib.
Yes, certainly will.
And even, what's his name, the opening batsman, Zazai.
Hazratullah
Zazai.
The six hitter, the sixes man, Hazratullah Zazai.
So he'll probably will have to take on the burden of Mohammad Shehzad onto his shoulders and score even runs for his sake. Play that role, that dynamic role, because he is also a very dynamic player, someone who can take the attack to the opposition. I remember Mohammad Shehzad scoring that 100 against India in the Asia Cup, where he just went away with the game for a while. And until India got him out. I think Bhuvi got him out at that point in Dubai and pulled the game back. But Zazai's got the ability to do the same thing. He did that against Ireland in India when they played against Ireland here and
in Dehradun.
Yeah, in Dehradun and in UP and scored some 100 in Noida. He scored 100, a quick fire 100 as well. So he's got the ability, and one hopes that we get to see that ability in the World Cup.
Yeah, I was just a little worried when Robin said the burden of Mohammad Shehzad, you don't want to carry him on your shoulders. That's going to be extremely worrying. So let's relieve another burden from all of you, because you've been setting in lots of answers, but some of you don't know the answer. Joy, this is the time to reveal it.
Yeah, okay. Time to go. And the question, this was a straightforward question. There's been only one test match in the 90s where one captain was the man of the match, while the other was making his debut. Name the two captains, and it's an interesting one because a lot of guys would have thought about South Africa making its debut. Which countries made their debut in the period? The answer is Mohammad Azharuddin and Lee German. Lee German actually walked into the New Zealand team as a captain. Went straight in there. He was a very good captain for Canterbury. Went straight in there as a captain. Azhar got a century on the other side. German didn't do badly actually. I think he top scored for his side with 46, 47, and the 10, 12 odd international matches that he played, I think his entire career he played only as captain. After that, when he was dropped, he was...
I think he was much like Graham Smith.
Yeah.
Who came into international cricket as a captain.
Age of 22.
Yeah. Very early. I mean,
he was 22 or 23.
Pataudi was, third test match when Nari Contractor went down. Pataudi was a captain in his third test match. Fourth test match, yeah.
Food for thought. But what about the winner of today's Joy Factor question? And the winner is Pranav Kamath, @Pranav_SK. All of you came in with #Cricbuzz Live. We're going to have questions for you every day, of course, and we hopefully keep getting newer and newer winners to come.
Joyda, what have you done with Crick Rohit?
I had no idea.
What have you done with him? We don't see him here.
He must be, they must
By the way, I have to tell you on an aside, nothing to do with cricket, but there were a lot of people who said, listen, we struggle with the answer, but can you wish can you talk for a second about Steffi Graf because she turns 50 today? So can you imagine from where to where people are going, sports fans? So for all of you out there who tweeted that with hashtag Cricbuzz Live, it's happy 50th to Steffi Graf, even though this is a cricket show, so what?
Don't we love her?
Yeah.
All of us just love her. What a great player.
Certainly do. Well, that's a great time to say thank you to Joy Bhattacharjya, to Robin Uthappa.
Yes.
We'll be back with a double header tomorrow, which of course starts with Sri Lanka against Australia. We'll see you then on My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live.